Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys and the Sounds in Cinema podcast. Mike and Tom are washing their mouths out with soap because the Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language.
Everything Sequel presents Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Part 2. When last we saw our heroes on both sides, they were engaged in bidding wars over the development of Jedi single living apartment complexes, before a peaceful transition into agreement on the best scene in the trilogy, a midichlorian-based anecdote whispered loudly during a transparent bubble opera. War!
Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast. This is the conclusion to the prequel edition. We're finally finishing up with Revenge of the Sith Part 2. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man who made an unwieldy title even more unwieldy by having to add our Part 2 to it, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hi, Tom.
Unlimited power!
What a line.
Thundercats are on the move, Thundercats are loose. That's what happens in my head when I hear that line.
He's so Mumra.
That dude is so Mumra.
That's right up there with your wizard. That's wizard.
Yeah, it's like a...
That's Mumra.
Yeah, it's like a short-lived 90s Nickelodeon show. That's so Mumra.
Since we're on the subject,
Yes,
why is it
please.
with the passage of time that somehow the Emperor's makeup got worse than it was in 1983? Riddle me that.
Along with the Yoda puppet, in Phantom Menace, it's a basic misremembering of what the Emperor looked like.
Right.
There
is footage
from a movie that you have easy visual reference of. You probably have a trading card with the Emperor in your pocket when you're making that call. I just think it's interesting that one of the differences between the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy is that the original trilogy inspired 80s Saturday morning cartoons like Thundercats and He-Man, whereas the prequel trilogy seems inspired by those very same Saturday morning kid cartoons, to the point of pastiche.
Yeah, he's got a real Gargamel feel to him.
God, I haven't heard the name Gargamel in so long.
Oh, well, dear listeners, when last we left you, we've been talking about a lightning accident for quite some time on the podcast.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure that's an accurate description of what happens.
Tom doesn't think that's even what happened, but that's how I described it.
Yeah, we're pretty much there. I mean, before that I suppose that happens in the denouement of the lightsaber duel that we're currently at in the movie. Is between Mace Windu and I don't know what you call him.
You didn't know what to call him.
In his last
in his last throes of being a human person instead of a space wizard.
Supreme Chancellor Palpatine.
Or is he a human person? Are any of these characters humans, or are they just humanoid?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think human is the catch-all term for, to borrow a phrase from Star Trek The Next Conversation's Andy Secunda, quintessential space uggos. I think that's the distinction they make. Whenever you're not a quintessential space uggo, you're a human.
You're a human. All right, fine.
But I have questions about, I mean, ethnically he's a Naboobian.
That doesn't sound good.
That doesn't sound right, does it?
That sounds like it's from the Acme Corporation. Something sending shit to Wile E. Coyote.
But I don't know if we're very close. We're very close to having the conversation about it. But I'll just tease the conversation by saying I wonder whether this is a reveal that he is not a human.
Oh, really?
Let's talk about the lightsaber duel. Let's talk about Mace Windu's death, and then
Okay, fine.
and then we can spend conservatively hours talking about the transformation into the Emperor.
We can indeed.
All
right. Well, when last we left,
I never thought I'd see the Emperor with a lightsaber.
Oh, really? I don't know that I ever had a conscious thought about whether or not I'd see the Emperor with a lightsaber.
It didn't help that George Lucas said that the Emperor would never have a lightsaber in various interviews. He's a different kind of Force user.
Level of Jedi or Force user.
He also said that about Yoda, and obviously
I was going to say, didn't you say he said the same about Yoda?
Yeah.
Changed his mind there.
It's another Lucas self-retcon.
Well, I'll just right off the top, let me tell you what doesn't work about this scene immediately.
Yeah.
Is it 4 Jedis against 1?
Sure, I don't remember the exact numbers, but he's outnumbered.
I'm pretty sure it's 4 against 1. He kills 2 immediately,
and
that third shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
And then, I think of the Jedi as a little bit more capable, no matter how powerful the Emperor is.
Yeah.
It also doesn't sit well that he's a fairly aged man, the actor himself, and we talked about how he's given all credit to his stunt doubles.
Well, he looks very uncomfortable doing this kind of.
But exactly, he doesn't look like the most nimble of foe. So no matter how many weird spins you give him, I think those first 2 Jedi could get at least a couple of defensive blows up,
By the way, he shouldn't be jumping around either. I mean, I never thought of him as a jumper.
He's a jumper and a spinner.
He's a jumper. He is a jumper and a spinner. And of course, behind the scenes in the making of documentary, we see that he was very uncomfortable doing this, and Sam Jackson was kind of giving him a hard time about how ill at ease he was.
As only Sam Jackson can.
Yeah. So, and that all reads. I conceptually, it doesn't work for me. The execution doesn't work for me. I guess on the level.
So conceptually,
by
conceptually, do you mean?
Work either.
Conceptually, do you mean just putting the lightsaber in his hand?
Yeah, having him.
Or adding the twists and the jumps with that.
All of it, yeah. Why would he be that kind of a Force user? Based on what we've seen before, and after, and during. If it's not a big deal for you, it's fine. It's good.
Yeah, it's not because we're in prequel land. I guess I imagined
another short-lived board game.
I guess I always imagined that Jedi like Yoda or the Emperor, their powers would grow from this moment, and in this moment they would use lightsabers, and I'm fine with that.
Fair.
Yeah.
If George Lucas hadn't said anything about it, maybe I wouldn't have.
Yeah, that's true.
Noticed it quite as much, but he did, and he contradicted himself.
Per always.
Always, yeah. But this is one that makes sense to me. I like the idea that the Force isn't just about 2 people with lightsabers. It's like it's about lightning and jumping and spinning, but everyone has a different take on it. I like that idea.
Like X-Men? Are you looking for that?
Something between what we have and X-Men. Yeah, something in the middle where it's not like every time it's lightsabers. Every time you see a Jedi, they've got a lightsaber, or a Sith that they have to fight with lightsabers. But
I think it plays
the
to
lightsabers come out every so often, and it's a nice treat when you see them, as opposed to, oh god, more lightsabers.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I guess it to me it always lends into the half cowboy, half samurai bent to these stories.
Yeah.
And you don't ever see the samurais put down their swords very often and use their minds and their lightning.
Well, yeah, but they don't exist in a galaxy where you can
Far,
manipulate
far away.
where you can manipulate space with your mind. So,
That's true.
you think they'd be doing more than that.
All right.
But anyway, by no means the biggest problem of the scene.
Yeah, every time I watch it, I'm immediately upset that they didn't have a better idea than to kill 3 Jedis quickly just so we can get to Mace Windu.
Right.
Which ends up not being that great a fight anyway, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, sure. Well, McDermott's not up to it, and Jackson's not taking it seriously because he's fighting McDermott.
Right.
And then my next note is Windu in the window.
Mm-hmm. You mean after they cut it open?
Yeah, well, Mace Windu is basically won. He's defeated the Emperor by reflecting his lightning back at him. And then he starts saying a lot of QAnon-style rhetoric about how he's too dangerous to be kept alive. And
sure.
So,
if you had any doubt, if you had any doubt about how terrible the Jedi were up to this point, this is the moment where you go, man, these fuckers are really dangerous.
His behavior runs counter to what we already know of the Jedis. I mean, Nixon White House aside.
This leans into benevolent dictator moment.
Right, he's more dark side than the dark side
right.
At this point.
Yeah.
He's just, summary execution is what he's announcing he's gonna do.
But trust me.
That's right. He's saying. He's gonna hang Mike Pence right from the
yes.
from the top of the Congress dome. And I think it's a mistake because it doesn't give Anakin a clear choice in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Even with...
Well, and I also, because that portion of it, when Anakin walks in, it's just paced terribly to me. It's awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Because he rushes in and then just stands there and says things like, no, I need him.
Mm-hmm.
I need a more definitive choice. If he runs in and just puts the saber right through Mace's chest,
yeah,
that's a clearer choice for the character.
It doesn't really work either way, because if he did that, then it would all be just a Three's Company style misunderstanding. But Anakin basically comes in and is legitimately surprised that Mace Windu isn't gonna just arrest him rather than basically execute him there and then.
Mm-hmm.
And then Anakin's hands are tied, really, because he's just like, well, you're both evil. You're both evil. You're both telling me you're gonna become dictators. This guy's got something I want.
And this guy doesn't.
Then this guy is barely giving me a seat on the Jedi Council.
Right.
I remember when he said the boy will not be trained. And, after it's done, spoiler alert, Mace Windu falls out of the window.
Mm-hmm.
And,
hey, but just
okay.
Is there any lore about whether or not Mace Windu actually dies? Because usually when something like this happens, someone doesn't really die, and I see him fall out that window. Luke fell off the tower, and we got 2 characters in the last movie that were falling off speeders in the air and falling thousands of feet, no problem. So in my mind, Mace Windu can come back.
I tend to think of the trope of no one really being dead in Star Wars as being a byproduct of how bad the storytelling is in the sequels. So I feel like this is a little bit early for that to be an intentional, we won't show him dying because we want him to come back in some form. I totally think that they might capitalize on that and we'll have a Mace Windu show or something.
Yeah, right.
But that's kind of that's like a Dave Filoni move rather than a George Lucas, I think. Because who gets up to this point? Who's been surprise resurrected? No one really, right?
I don't know. I don't know the year where I first heard, "Hey, Darth Maul not really dead."
Oh yeah, well this was after. It was after the prequel trilogy they decided that was the case.
Like long after.
Well, I don't know, but in terms of actual history, it was well into Clone Wars, I think, when that was decided, or at least that was presented to us on screen. Up to that point, it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Historically, so I associate it with the problems of modern Star Wars rather than.
Past.
I don't think in this area
Obi-Wan really did die. So did Yoda.
Yeah, Obi-Wan really did die. Yoda really did die.
So did Darth Vader.
I think they're legitimately killing off Mace Windu here because they have no further use to him, and George Lucas doesn't want to make any more Star Wars movies. So
that's true.
I think, really he's sort of this is the first narrative purpose he served in the entire trilogy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Apart from beheading Jango Fett, which make as much of a difference as you think it might.
Now, what say you to...
So, yeah.
Well, I had spoken earlier about the first time I saw this, the idea of the lightning reversing back off of a lightsaber and fucking up Palpatine's face was the least interesting thing to me to see how he became the space wizard.
Sure.
And I have a little bit further evidence to support my...
I like the simplicity of that, though.
Okay.
I just don't think it's that simple.
Because I think I had said that as a kid, I had put this idea in my head that the dark side of the Force corrupts you so much.
I think that's there. I think that's a possibility. So there's two ways you can read.
I don't think it's there. But the thing I do think is there is the eyes. Because even Anakin starts getting the yellow eyes. And I thought, so it's
he's on those night flights.
Yeah, exactly. And so, to me, that idea is even here in this final movie of the prequels. The idea of the dark side of the Force fucking up your shit. And I guess I just always wanted something else to happen.
By no means does this affect what is actually in the movie. But I believe the novelization of Revenge of the Sith concludes that what is in fact happening here is that the lightning is not deforming him, but it's stripping away his human facade and revealing him to be this space goblin.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying
it doesn't read that way to me on screen. It reads as the lightning has fucked up my face.
It's also never stated definitively that it's a lightning accident.
Mm-hmm. You mean in the book or
no?
On
in
film?
the movie, because it's not what happens to him is not the product of scarring. Also, scars don't heal that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
He's got those kind of rubber ridges, which
big,
almost looks
big wrinkles, as I call them.
Yeah, the big wrinkles, and it's almost like they've just. We were talking about Mission Impossible off mic. It's like they just pulled the Wolf Blitzer mask off, and there's a hideous space goblin inside.
Well, I think it does read as the lightning is bouncing off of Mace Windu's saber and hitting his face. I do think that's there. But the other thing I don't get is that we see characters take lightning. Luke takes a lot of lightning in Jedi. It doesn't deform him.
Well, that's why I think it might not be... That might have just been a byproduct of not being clear about what's going on.
Right.
Is that we leave the scene going, oh, it was a lightning accident, and that's his scarring. And he says, right, this is the other thing, he announces to the Senate that...
Yeah, it's left me deformed.
It's left me deformed. Remember, this guy's record on honesty is not great. So, let's not take his word for it.
He's not going to say, this Jedi attack has revealed my true face.
Yeah. He doesn't say that because that would tacitly be admitting that he's an evil Sith Lord.
He's quite evil.
He'd be planning this all along. So that could easily just be his cover story, and we've all bought it collectively as an audience. Which when you think about how unreliable a narrator he is, that is really
and it makes sense.
Some passive viewing from us.
Oh boy.
So
well, I don't think Lucas has done a good job.
No, it's a terrible.
If that is the case, I don't think he's done a good enough job as director, cluing the audience into that. But
I also think even if that's not the case, he's not done a terribly good job of executing the sequence. The person doing a great job, however, as we have said previously, is Ian McDiarmid, who leaves nothing on the table here. There's nary an acting scrap to be found on this scene.
Yes,
and it runs the gamut from his kind of pretend cowardice to the cackling space wizard. And something else, and I absolutely agree with you about it doesn't connect with the Emperor we've seen. This is supposed to be a transformation into the Emperor we know, and there's still a huge gap in the look, the face, and the voice, for that matter.
Yeah, I thought the same thing too, and it's funny you say that. I never thought that until this watching. I realized that it's different.
Unless Ian McDiarmid is the only person in the cast who's clocked that in 20 years a lot can happen to you physically, and there's no reason to play it as if nothing happens for the next 20 years. But if so, he's the only actor in the cast playing that, which is perfectly possible. Something I think I said in our Return of the Jedi episode, that I always thought the Emperor was inadvertently cute. Like there was a kind of he had this little bird face. That was actually quite cute, and I think he's even cuter here. He's he looks like a cuddly toy. Those eyes are adorable.
He kind of looks like E.T.
Yeah, which I don't think is what they're going for.
No,
and that inadvertent cuteness is amplified here.
I never thought of him as cute in those first movies, but I totally get what you're saying in this movie.
He's kind of teddy bearish almost. He's like a Teddy Ruxpin gone wrong. or a Teddy Ruxpin, because those fucking things never worked. I had one as a kid. It never fucking worked. So and it's also disappointing on the Anakin side as well, because after he kills Mace Windu, which was his choice, he says, what have I done? And I'm like, Anakin becomes Vader just to avoid a difficult conversation with the Jedi, essentially. He's basically like, I don't want to go to them and say...
I don't want to tell them that
I don't want to tell them that Mace Windu was trying to take over the government. And that's the other thing. When the Emperor stands up and said it, saying the Jedi were trying to take over the government, he's not wrong.
Right.
It wasn't it didn't just look like Mace Windu was going to do that. He said very clearly he was going to do it. And one of the other things I kind of hate about because this is where he becomes Darth Vader as well, which is something else that is unexpected and doesn't work. I
have questions about that.
Yeah, it was an issue specific turn to the dark side. So basically, Anakin said, "Okay, so I need this life restoring power. That's why I'm going to turn to the dark side."
Right.
It's got nothing to do with the all the trauma and the triggers and his
that we spent 2 movies going through.
It all just comes down to this guy's got basically it's like Dungeons and Dragons. This guy's got the potion.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna roll a 6 and
Yeah, right.
And it's all external to the psychological trauma that we've been accumulating.
Right.
And it's such a distraction from what's really going, or what should really be going on with this guy's character.
Well, this is a 2 hour and 23 minute film, and we're an hour and 20 minutes in, and he becomes Lord Vader.
Yeah, and I mean, I gotta say, I mean, once he, signs the, as we said, he signs up to Sith Inc.
Right. First order of business: kill the children.
That's the thing. It's like there's no. He goes from even. He goes from 0 to 60, right?
Right.
He's
Yeah. Exactly.
He's reluctantly turning to the dark side in order to save, as he sees it, save his wife from her impending death.
Mm-hmm.
Minutes later, he's off committing child slaughter.
Yeah.
No women this time, but he
Yes.
definitely he
But
got a
female
taste
children.
he got a taste for that child blood, I think.
Yeah. Right.
And
what's funny though is that because I don't care for that turn, like you said, it's 0 to 60 so quickly.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a person that made a reluctant choice. He made a choice, but it was a reluctant choice. And then you kind of double down on that reluctance by having the character say, "What have I done?" But within the moment, when the children all appear and the lightsaber comes down, the acting from that one kid, when he kind of does that half, oh fuck turn.
Yeah.
That's kind of heartbreaking. That poor kid. I like the acting choice in that moment of that kid.
It really pushes the boundaries of what should be in a kid-friendly adventure movie, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Especially for a trilogy which has sort of pitched itself as being more child-friendly than even the original.
Yeah, I mean, think of where we started with Jar Jar Binks.
Well, we're essentially watching this kind of lizard man perform Buster Keaton routines, and now we're slicing through children like they're battle droids.
Mm-hmm.
It's I mean, it goes from one extreme to he immediately becomes a mass murderer. I guess he already is a mass murderer, but the film doesn't seem to make that connection either. Like, there should be some sense of his ease of doing this has got something to do with him being steeped in blood from previous acts of slaughter, either during the war or prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
And that link is never made. It is just it's essentially him paying off a debt.
Yeah, right.
Which is crazy.
I mean, they try to wrap it up in some more wicked emperor fast talk nonsense of him saying this is the only way we can make the galaxy safe. You got to get rid of the Jedi. That includes the kids. Anyway, good luck.
But no one conflicted acts this way.
Right. That's the problem.
The movie wants us to believe that he's still conflicted about his choice.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's swiping away at children's heads like that, it's
no can do.
Yeah. It also, I gotta say, like, it's another kind of self-retcon from George Lucas, because he advocated that the reason he wanted Anakin so young in the Phantom Menace, which we both agree was a mistake, was that
I'll say it again.
He wanted to make the point that even the most evil people in the world started out as innocent children. I say, but when you end your trilogy with him slaughtering innocent children, that point is somewhat undermined.
A little bit. Let me ask you this, because this thought occurred to me. These movies are all kind of rattling around in my brain over the weeks that we've been recording these podcasts. And I realized...
I guess technically you could call them weeks, yes. Months would also be an accurate statement.
That's true. But I realized that you go into these prequels, and I think you have a preconceived notion that Vader has to become Vader in the third film. Does he?
No.
What if he became Vader at the end of the second film?
He might as well have done, because all the psychological work is done in the second movie. So at least the turn has begun. Mm-hmm. By the end of the second movie.
But again, it's funny how one problem begets another problem. You just brought up the idea of such a young kid in the first movie. If you have Hayden Christensen in the first movie,
I also think they missed the.
You can start further along those lines,
Well, I also think they missed the boat, having decided to do that. They should have put in another 10-year gap between the second and third film and cast a different actor to play Anakin once again.
Oof.
Because I don't understand the logic of keeping Hayden Christensen to play older than he is.
You don't like any continuity?
Well, but it's not. I
get what you're saying in the fact that they already had a
continuity
a
would
different
be
actor for the first movie.
The actor and keeping
you're right about that.
Consistent.
But what would be your preference? 3 different actors, or
absolutely.
Hayden Christensen for all 3?
Do you know how many actors have played Darth Vader? The damage has been done already. Probably more actors have played that one character than any other in pop culture history.
I think I'd like to see one actor doing all 3 of these movies.
Sure, if that's the story they're telling, and they take place kind of close to each other. But like I say, if you're going to start young, do that 10-year gap, you've got to make it work for the entire trilogy. You can't just back away from it from the third film, like in the third installment.
All right. There you got me. I agree with you there.
Well, I mean, what we're essentially both saying is we would like this to be different in many different ways.
In many different ways. It's funny because I've talked a lot about the ages of all the actors, and I think that your idea, compounds the problem, because if you have Natalie Portman and
Ewan
McGregor, thank you. So if you have Natalie Portman and Ewan McGregor through all 3 movies, but you change the Darth Vader actor as though they're aging quite a bit, and these other 2 actors aren't aging at all.
Yeah.
I think everything that doesn't sit right with me between 1 and 2 goes further along those lines.
Yeah, that would be a different kind of inconsistency, but one I could live with more easily.
Okay. I think it would get under my skin.
And hence why no 2 Star Wars fans can agree with each other on any one thing anymore, right? This is what has happened to us as a community.
But I'd like to say right now that I'm definitely right.
It's I've entered that into the record.
Fine.
So
Thank you.
Yeah. It doesn't say at all Mike is a wiener. That's not what I wrote. Let's talk Order 66.
Yeah, the 66 of it all.
Because this sort of happens mid Temple Slaughter.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff interchanged. Doesn't Space Jimmy Smits? He comes in at one point, and he's
after Order 66.
That's after Order 66.
Yeah. While Order 66 is being filled.
Yeah. But there's a couple of teenage Jedi that weren't slaughtered, or at least one, because that Jedi is sort of the one that allows Space Jimmy Smits to escape. I also don't understand why all the bad guys say, "Let him go." It's Space Jimmy Smits.
Well, so, I mean, first of all, Space Jimmy Smits is finally entering the plot.
Yeah.
After 2 movies of standing around in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Now, suddenly he's the lead character.
Yeah, I know.
Because the story demands
it requires
that he becomes the lead. Yeah. Which I think is hilarious. It literally feels like that Lucas forgot about him, and now he has no choice but to make him the lead of the movie.
I wrote down Jimmy Smits escapes because...
Yeah. I'm grateful that it is Jimmy Smits.
Yeah,
not
for sure.
Actor. But it's not... it's not a very gratifying role for him to play up until this point. He's got that terrible line, and so it is, which is the most placeholdery line I've ever heard in the history of placeholder lines.
I think you must have mentioned that.
That's
the line that you mentioned, right? In the it's was
up
the
there with the
ranking
Love is Blind
episode.
dialogue.
Yeah.
I know exactly how that line came about. George was just like, well, he's got to say something at the end of the scene, but I don't have any content to give him. And so it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit later about what it means to have surviving Jedi out there, because I think had they not said that line, modern Star Wars would be in a much better state than it's currently in. I really wish that they were just wiped out. Like, because up until this point, that is what we thought was the case. Apparently, there's a lot of them out there. But, I mean, what do you think? Order 66, the thing that always strikes me is, again, like, the biblical nature of it and how much Christian allegory is, like, part of this trilogy from There Was No Father onwards.
Right.
Like, Order 66, really? It's a little on the nose.
Well, and that the other part of it to me is, the movie feels like it's at a point where it could get really messy. Mm-hmm. Because we have to either have a 3.5-hour movie or this 3-4 minute montage to kill some Jedi and clean up some shit so that we can get to Lava Planet. And so
it's where they got the idea for that 9.5 minute killing spree in Breaking Bad.
Absolutely.
They should have had the Emperor like pressing the timer on his watch.
A Blue Thunder kind of Roy Scheider thing.
And as far as we can tell, only Yoda and Obi-Wan escape this, which they have no choice but to escape.
They must.
Because they must. The manner in which Yoda survives, I think, once again underuses the Wookiees in the room. Mm-hmm. I feel like we already know that he's capable of defending himself, so I think it would have been fine if the Wookiees are the ones that saved him.
Did something.
And then that would give us some purpose in the film, right?
Right.
That would give us some reason for their appearance in the film.
They're totally ornamental as it is. It's just like, look, everyone, Wookiees.
Yeah. And when you see a scene like this, you go, it would have been really easy to give them something to do. Mm-hmm. Like, save Yoda from his death.
Right.
And it would have been a nice, like, applause moment in the audience.
It would have been. I think in
at
George's...
At a time when we really need something to cheer the crowd.
I think in George's mind, though, there's nothing that the Wookiees possess that would give them Yoda-type insight to bad feelings. Right?
Well, it could just be like a Frank Drebin sort of, after I ripped their arms off, I realized that they were traitors. Yeah.
But I think you could, I think you could say something interesting about the Wookiees.
Definitely. Or anything interesting.
Anything, yes. This idea that the character that referred to as the walking carpet since movie 1 actually possesses quite a bit of intellect and
is a war hero.
And yeah, right. Yeah.
Would have been great.
I like the idea that the Wookiees could sense something out, suss it out.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they're, think about what they're based on. Bears and wolves and... Mm-hmm. Yeah. They have great... They could... except in this galaxy, it's the Ewoks who possess all those kind of... that kind of instinctive foresight.
Right. By the way, I wrote down Yoda kills troopers and escapes after obligatory Chewbacca sighting.
Yeah. It's just so you can scratch out his spot on the bingo card, isn't it?
Right.
If you get 8 Chewbacca sightings, you get a free popcorn. And this is we're jumping around a little bit, but it's after we see Yoda save himself from death that the painfully Anakin approaches the Jedi, the younglings. And we get the painfully British child asking for help. And I just think, like, in their head, like, it's just that Lucasfilm nostalgia for that Elstree era where British children were just roaming around all the franchises. Like in Superman 2, the British kid who's in the Midwest.
The British kid in the town.
And I presume George Lucas was like, get a British kid! What do you mean there's not one here? Maybe George Lucas just thought they were, like, wild animals who hung around Elstree Studios. Following Yoda's self-rescue, I'm trying to think of the term. Yoda doesn't die because he figures it out ahead of time. Yeah. Because Jedis can see the future, as has been established. Not too far into the future, but, just see things before they happen.
Right.
Although I don't know why all the other Jedis didn't see it. Anyway, we can't get into that.
It doesn't. You can't get into that.
It's a can of worms. Do you think they were going for like an E.T. moment when he leaves in his little spaceship and goes back to Coruscant?
I did make a note about it. Yeah, because doesn't the music even feel reminiscent in the moment?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I mean, how much is that? The one score.
I know your theory.
Can I tell you something about? I really don't want to take us down tangents on this particular episode, but I got to tell you something about my recent viewing of a movie that had music by John Williams in, just to prove that I blindly adhere to the one score theory without even knowing.
Uh-huh.
I was watching Presumed Innocent, as is my wont, and
good movie.
Great movie. The movie begins and you've got that, bored Harrison Ford voiceover because guy doesn't like
That's how he does voiceover.
Guy doesn't like being in a voiceover studio, and yet most of his movies begin with voiceovers. And then the music comes in. I'm like, God, this really sounds like the Harry Potter soundtrack. Literally seconds later, music by John Williams comes up on the screen. So it's not just a prejudice. It's based on blind tasting as well.
All right.
I also didn't know he did the music for JFK.
Really? I didn't know that. I'm surprised that he did Presumed Innocent. Now I have to watch it to listen for Harry Potter.
And there's a lot of Harry Potter in that score. Anyway, that was a tangent. But so a couple of things about the E.T. moment is that I get it because these are our most loved aliens, right? A Yoda and a Wookiee.
Right.
So I get why they're leaning into that. He's only going back to Coruscant. This scene
he's not
feels like he's he's leaving, and I guess
he's going to Dagobah.
The point of ET is he's going forever. You're never going to see him again. That's why it's so affecting. And yet he's just going back to his house again. We don't know where Jedis live, but let's assume he's got like a janitor's whatever in the temple. So he's going back there. He's not going to Dagobah yet, unless, as I suspect might be the case, this was supposed to be him going to Dagobah, and they rewrote it. Because that's what it feels like.
I seem to recall... I don't know that it was... I don't know if the story beat was added later or something, because there is a cut scene of him landing at Dagobah.
That's right. And they said it was the most painful scene to cut in the whole movie.
Yeah.
But they couldn't justify it being in there.
Being in there, right.
Which is a hell of a statement to make, given some of the things that happen in this movie. Anything involving General Grievous could go, so we could see, because
we could get 10 more seconds of Yoda landing on Dagobah.
Essentially,
come on.
as it's described, all that happens is he lands, and then his ship sort of becomes his house. I was like, I quite like to see that. I don't care that it's not important to the story. And it's at this point we see a familiar white corridor, which is the what is it, the Tanti 4? Is that the name of the ship? The first ship we see in Star Wars. So this is the point at which George is like, "Come on, we really gotta
start connecting these." These sets of movies.
George, it doesn't go together. I don't care. Weld it, glue it, do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
So it also implies that when I see that white corridor at the beginning of Star Wars, I assume that this is trying to establish the look of all spaceships in Star Wars. That's its purpose. It's like, this is what the inside of a spaceship looks like in this galaxy.
Right.
This movie, because no other spaceship looks like this in this prequel trilogy. Apart from this
trilogy, right?
It's like,
exactly.
It's like, oh, so all that aesthetics is based on one ship.
I guess it's just particular to Dantooine.
Right. Yeah. And obviously it's becoming very familiar also because it's R2-D2 and C-3PO there. and they're starting to fall into their roles as onlookers.
Right.
At one point, C-3PO says, "Hush, not so loud," while he's trying to watch what's going on, and it's just like, it makes them seem like real perverts, that they're actively... We never saw them actively eavesdropping in the original trilogy in the way that they do here.
Does 3PO have a moment where he says, well, he is under a lot of stress or two?
He really does. He really genuinely does. He's a mass murder apologist.
Apologist?
Yeah. He's like Leonard Maltin when at the beginning of Warner Brothers cartoons.
I imagine that the beeps of R2 must have been, I think this fucker killed a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And C-3PO just replies, well, he is under a lot of stress, R2.
It's interesting as well. You made exactly the same point in the previous episode about the beginning of the movie that I have here. R2-D2, having him as Anakin's sidekick in these scenes, makes him an accomplice to a murder spree.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. There is something unsavory about him.
By the way, because he's not done murdering. We got to go to Lava Planet.
Sure.
He's got
and
plenty
R2's
of killing
on that
left
ship,
to do.
Isn't he?
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
And you notice that the second Anakin gets off the ship, R2 starts following. He says, "Stay here, R2." And that's just for the audience's benefit, to make sure that they don't have to watch R2 watching a lot of murder.
But why is he there at all? They could have come up with a bullshit story reason why he wasn't there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or they could have just have him fly away, because that's been a stuff. That would have been amazing if as soon as they're off the ship he turns around, R2 just goes, "I'm out of here. Fuck this."
If through a window he sees him get cut down Newt Gunray, he's like, "Fuck this." And he takes off.
Like Poochie.
Oh, that would have been great. Poochie style, yeah. Oh.
Although, so while all, what they do with how they use R2 in these scenes is really unsettling. I think this is the only moment in the entire prequel trilogy where C-3PO is written properly, because he says, "I feel so helpless." Now, only C-3PO can take a situation like this and make it all about himself.
Right.
That is the essence of this guy, boiled down. I did like that moment.
I don't mind telling you that listening to while listening to the commentary, and every once in a while, Anthony Daniels pops up, I get that sense from him as well.
Yeah.
All his commentary revolves around... I don't know, there's one portion where he's talking about everybody's finally looking at me, and I was like, Jesus Christ.
I read a review of his autobiography written by Alex Robinson from Star Wars Minutes, and he more or less says the same thing.
Oh, man,
he's got that R.I.P. William Friedkin disease of somehow every anecdote he tells, he comes out on top.
Right.
And it is not historically reported the same. So Yoda and Obi-Wan meet back at...
Yeah, right. That's where I was.
Yeah. So it's
and
weird
we're kind of juxtaposing between them fighting and getting into the temple and the Emperor, killing Liberty.
Right. It's written as if Yoda has to be persuaded to save more Jedi, because he's initially reluctant to send out that message.
Right.
And the only thing that convinces him is like, "Oh, we can get more information out about what happened." And I'm like, that shouldn't be your smoking gun for why you do this. Should be to save the lives of all the Jedi that are still in the galaxy, of whom there are many.
Right. I do like him throwing his lightsaber, though.
Who throwing his lightsaber?
Yoda.
At this point?
Yeah, as they're fighting to get into the temple, he has a lightsaber throw at a clone.
Mm-hmm.
That's good fun.
And then we're on Mustafar, the lava planet, because I don't think anyone.
I would not set up shop on a lava planet. That's just me.
And this is interesting because it brings into canon the idea of Anakin becoming Vader after Obi-Wan drops him in a lava pit, which I don't know where that comes from, but I knew it was going to happen before I saw it in Revenge of the Sith, which makes me think it's in a novelization or in some kind of expanded universe, maybe a trading card or something. Because
I don't know that
I knew this when I
had
watched
any sense.
I knew this.
I don't read the novels, but
well, I hadn't either. It was like, again, it was the rumor mill, which you know often dispensed inaccurate information, like there are bits of Jabba flying off the barge, explosion. but occasionally they come up with a nugget of truth. Like I remember someone saying to me, "Oh yeah, he's the reason he's in the machine body is because he got burnt when Obi-Wan they fought a duel and Obi-Wan put him in a lava pit." That's what happens here, but this was about 10, 15 years before that happened, so it must be something that was in. It wasn't
the ether.
It wasn't Legends at the time. It was canon at the time, but it's subsequently been reclassified as Legends. But it was something from that Legends era of the expanded universe that was legitimized in canon. And there's a few things like this in this ending, which is like, I knew going into the film that this was going to happen, but I had no idea where it was, because it wasn't in any of the original trilogy movies. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Because I knew that was how Anakin became Vader.
You knew he was crispy.
Before Revenge of the Sith. I knew he was going to get dropped in lava at some point.
Huh.
So it comes from...
I can't say that I did.
It comes from somewhere.
We kind of mentioned it, but Vader does land, and he just gets rid of every accomplice that ever lived.
Yeah. And again, by killing them, we never learn how much Nute Gunray knew about what was going on.
We really don't. He's gone forever.
So it's interesting because I don't know if this even matters in the big scheme of things, but in Attack of the Clones, didn't Dooku say that Nute Gunray had turned his back on Sidious after being betrayed from the events of Phantom Menace?
I think so.
So I don't know if Nute Gunray subsequently came back into the fold and Dooku was lying, or
it complicates everything we've been wondering about Dooku too, because he's with Dooku, you know.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
How much are they working together? How much is he telling the Emperor or Palpatine? There's a lot of unresolved questions around Nute Gunray.
Maybe it was a good move to kill him. I mean, also, it makes the movie less racist to have him
finally get rid of him
alive. So maybe it's not a bad choice. And this is where you get your red eyes.
Yeah.
For Anakin, which I think is hilarious because at this point they're trying to explain every detail of the original trilogy, no matter how inconsistently it was deployed, even in the original trilogy. So Vader doesn't always have red eyes, right? He has red eyes sometimes and sometimes not, and yet the movie still feels like it needs to explain why he would have red eyes on certain occasions and not on others. It's just what you should just stay away from it. If it already doesn't make sense, don't make it make less sense.
Don't further complicate the complicated. And don't we go back and forth because Obi-Wan goes to see Padme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think Ewan McGregor's really good in that scene.
I think he's great throughout the movie. I think his performance is outstanding. I don't know if it's just because the whole thing is over and he gets to live his life like a normal human being again, but he looks like he's floating on air.
He looks tired.
No, I think the opposite. He's kind of like gone beyond tired and he's just delirious and ready to be done.
Oh, I see.
And he's got a big smile on his face the entire time because he knows it's his last days on set.
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe he's genuinely enjoying himself. According to the behind-the-scenes footage, he loved all the physical work attached to it, the fight choreography.
Yes.
He went for that in a big way, which is to his credit, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
Other actors would have been, I think, a bit more skeptical of the importance of that, but he threw himself into it.
Well, I keep thinking about that scene with Padme. I think they're both pretty good in it, and I think overall it's pretty well done scene, but I wish it was more. If there was more of the triangle we had talked about in the last episode, like how much mileage could you have gotten out of this scene?
Because it's again, as a parallel to what I was saying in the last episode, like this needs to be more like, without cursing the podcast further, more like Macbeth, right? It's more like, it should be more like he comes back from war and there's a continuity into genocide and murder.
Yeah.
This should also, the end of this movie should be more like Othello. Like I can see the outline of the Othello storyline, the love triangle.
Sure.
You know, in later scenes, Anakin is gonna nearly kill Padme based on an accusation that is based on false information based
on one Superman pose.
Yeah, exactly, and another, you know, and with the Emperor as the kind of Yago figure in there.
Yeah.
So the outline is there, but without there being any romantic interest established,
right,
it kind of falls really flat. So they really should have just played it as, you know, just kind of like textbook plagiarized Othello for this ending. We would have all loved it. I mean,
I wrote down it could have been maybe one of the best scenes in the series, but Lucas doesn't care about emotions.
Which scene is that? You have to be more specific.
The one between Obi-Wan and Padme.
Okay, yeah. Scene I really do. Oh, do we need a break?
Yeah, I was gonna say we're about to get to a huge a huge laser sword fight. So
did you say maybe we should take a break? A labor fight?
A labor fight.
You're not wrong, because we're about to go back in the Senate.
That's true. Yeah.
I think we're in the middle of a debate about labor relations.
Yeah, we're gonna get the line.
Yeah.
So why don't we take a break and we'll come back?
Let's take a break and then we'll return to C-SPAN. I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are, finishing up. Finally with the prequels. Gotta get done with Revenge of the Sith. All right, Tom.
That's how the movie feels about the movie.
Yeah.
We gotta get this. It's like from this
it
point
does
onwards,
feel like that, doesn't it?
We gotta get this done.
We have to get this done.
We got a deadline, guys.
Yeah. I mean, the whole rest of this movie is basically...
pull an all-nighter.
Yeah. The whole rest of this movie is basically, you know, Obi-Wan is fighting with Anakin and Yoda is fighting with the Emperor, and that's it. Pretty much.
Oh, well, Padme gives birth to the two leads of the...
Well, until the end. But they're only going to devote about 4 minutes to that, Tom.
Tell me about it. Yeah, I got a lot to say about the amount of time spent on that and thought.
Well, and I guess when we left, we kind of referenced it, but the Palpatine is giving quite a speech.
It's a great scene. Another great scene. I think one of the things you can say about this trilogy is that everything that George Lucas put into place with regards to Senate politics really pays off. Right? It might not be people's first choice for what's in a Star Wars movie.
What's in a movie, yeah.
But, you know, like he really, he does he pushes through on this idea.
It can't be denied. I'll tell you that much.
And I think the scene is great. I mean, there are echoes, obviously, of what's going on in American society with the Patriot Act.
Mm-hmm.
You know, using the subterfuge of 9/11 to get the democratic chambers of government behind fascism, essentially, which is what was happening.
Yeah.
In the real world.
Right.
And so I think this has happened multiple times since in American society, where everyone has kind of rallied around a semi-dictator.
A terrible idea, right?
Yeah.
Well, and also to think at that time about how derided you were if you were a dissenter.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, that's the bravery of a line like, "So this is how liberty dies with thunderous applause."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, you have a recent memory of everyone on the floor of Congress giving a standing ovation to George Bush,
right?
As everyone bar a handful of politicians voted unanimously to go to war.
Sure.
You know, that's clearly part of this. But also, if you think about it in terms of the previous three films, it's our only sort of through line. It's the only thing that really comes to fruition in any of the storytelling.
Right. Except Vader will become Vader.
Yeah, I think it's really good. I'm glad. It feels like
I think it's good for what it is.
My note is it's like, in the big scheme of things, this part of the franchise really pays off in a way that other aspects of the franchise don't.
I think I take issue with the word "really."
But everything about this manipulation of the Senate kind of tracks.
That's true. You're right about that. You know, it's a story idea he came up with, and he stuck with it to the end.
Don't patronize me.
That I agree with completely.
That is correct. It is a film. It is things that happen in a film. You are correct. Well done. Well done for noticing that.
But, you know, it's funny. I mean, you know, you have the line. You have the line about liberty, and this is how it dies, to thunderous applause.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my hope is that, and I assume that you're right, that George Lucas was, you know, really making a parallel with what was going on in our country at the time.
I think so.
I hope so.
I think it's pretty obvious by this point.
Yeah.
That's the implication.
But it's weird, right? That he sneaks this by, like, not sneaks, but just the idea that this is the main thing in these movies at a time when America didn't want to hear it.
When America absolutely didn't want to hear it, and I think that factors into the poor reception. I also think, you know, this kind of real world politics is a kind of turn off for a lot of fans of science fiction fantasy. That's a big part of it too.
Sure.
Although I think the goalposts are changing on that, because the idea of a show like Andor being successful kind of relies on you buying into this kind of C-SPAN version of Star Wars, which is presented here. So I don't know what the change is. Is it people's taste? Is it the fact it's TV, not a movie? But I'm always surprised by the success of Andor and people's continuing dislike of these scenes from the prequel trilogy. I like it a lot. I think it pays off. I think it works.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I mean, does it pay off enough that this is what we should have been following for 3 movies for you?
Good question.
Although I don't know, how do you avoid it? I mean, I guess the Emperor could become the Emperor through something other than politics, but
that's where comparison to the original trilogy will do you no good, because the original trilogy talked about all of this off screen and it didn't change anything. You know, it was in the first movie, it was just Peter Cushing coming into a room and going, "Senate's gone, get over it." You know, and the stuff about regional governors, and it's like that's really all you need. You don't need to cut away to it and show it. But this is the opposite approach, isn't it? It's like we sort of we designed this elaborate set piece of the Senate, which is kind of like one of our biggest sort of visual tricks of the whole franchise, the whole trilogy. So I don't know. I think it's again, you're caught between two camps of, did it need to be there in the first place? But given that it's there, is it not at least good that it feels coherent and consistent in a way that most of the storylines in this
that I agree. Yeah, that I'll agree with you.
Yeah,
it is a through line that you can follow, and it has a resolution.
Because you can look back and go, hey, all that stuff with Chancellor Valorum, it paid off in the end.
It mattered.
Took 2 movies, but it paid off. We didn't just waste Terrence Stamp's time. Completely. Only wasted his time a little bit. And, it does... The other good thing about it is it doesn't conspicuously clash with anything in the original trilogy, so we know that...
And a lot of these movies does, so yeah, there's...
A lot of, when we get to, Star Wars, we know the political situation is it's an empire with a kind of lame duck Senate that has just been dissolved, so... That's good. It fits into the established timeline as well. In a way,
in Star Wars, there's even
everything we see from this point doesn't.
You even have the line in Star Wars about how will the Emperor maintain control. Well, this fucking battle station. That's how. Shut up.
Yeah, that's right. Why is it taking us so long to build it? Stop asking questions.
Be quiet. Shut your dirty whore mouth.
Vader, choke him. He has script notes. Choke him.
Yeah.
Yoda and Obi-Wan look at the security hologram footage from the Jedi Temple.
It's not good.
And it's not good. And Obi-Wan recalibrates the Order 66 signal so that it does the opposite of what it's supposed to. So if that was the Antichrist, this is the Christ. And then this is the line that I think gets us in, that is, given carte blanche to people making Star Wars now to do what the fuck they want with the Jedi, which is, they say, sending out a message to all surviving Jedi.
Right.
So now we can entertain the possibility that there are more Jedi out there than we thought, and it never ends.
No, of course not.
It doesn't fit. There should really only be Yoda and Obi-Wan for any of the original trilogy to make sense. Because there's so much made of Luke being the last of his kind, and...
Yeah, but...
It's just...
based on what I...
And they know that, and Yoda and Obi-Wan know that.
Right. But I guess
Where does Ahsoka factor into there is another?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Did we cut away too quickly? And he was like, and another,
yeah,
and another. Oh, and there's this woman with a nice ass who drives around on a speeder, Anyway.
I guess that for me, look, you're right, but how can we assume that there's just nobody else that's ever going to be born without a little Force in them? They're always going to...
Oh, I mean,
I get I get what you're saying about actual Jedi, but there are, people that are underdeveloped or that kind of thing, but...
I just think, well, it's not about underdevelopment, it's just like the Disney era kind of jumped on this. And if they'd have closed the story door here and just said they're extinct. Right, apart from these people who are in hiding. Another big problem with this scene, at least to my mind, and again, this links into Disney Plus era Star Wars. Obi-Wan knew that Anakin had renamed himself Darth Vader.
Right.
So there's no way he wouldn't have found out in the next 10 years that he wasn't still alive.
Yeah.
So they fucked themselves from both sides. He certainly shouldn't be surprised that he survived. Anyway, Yoda is consistent in trying to get other Jedi to kill their loved ones.
Always.
He's always the one. It's like, here's what you do next.
You gotta
go out
kill
and
him.
Kill the person. You gotta kill the person closest to you. Because doesn't Obi-Wan's like, he's like a brother to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, that's the point. You're just like, the point that is.
Right. You can't have it. You can't have a friend. You can't have someone you love so much and are so close to. That's not the Jedi way.
But he's the one who tells Luke to try and kill his father twice.
Yeah. Kill your dad, I said.
Yeah. It's like Luke's like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. I thought you were going to say something about peace and defense or something.
No, absolutely not.
Go ahead and kill one of the only surviving members of your family.
I always felt like in the original trilogy, it feels more Shakespearean. It feels like a terrible choice, but that idea of the galaxy is in danger until we get rid of this Death Star, the Emperor, and Vader. And you're the one. You're the chosen one. You're the person that this. I'm sorry it falls on your shoulders, but go ahead and do it. When you add these trilogy movies of we're just the Jedis are shitty, and we're just gonna always tell you to do the shitty thing. Like I blame the original trilogy so much less than I do once you add these three movies.
Sure, maybe he's like George Clooney and Up in the Air. He's the Jedi they send out to break bad news.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's always like if you see Yoda's silhouette coming around the corner with his
you're like, oh fuck,
I'm gonna get so fired.
I'm gonna have to kill 30 people.
A word with you, I would like to have. My next note is all droid units must be shut down immediately. And I had a Mandela effect moment with this because I kept expecting there to be a cutaway to battle droids all across the galaxy being shut down.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, that's what followed that line. So I think I'm misremembering it based on the scene in The Phantom Menace where Anakin blows up the droid station and they all cut down. But I think I'm merging that in my mind with Order 66, and I like the. It's also Lucas having to write around what isn't there in the original.
Yeah.
Because there's no sign of any battle droids anymore. So it's just like, so we're writing them. You might as well have said, write out the droid units.
I had a note that Obi-Wan slips onto Padme's ship in full CGI, not unlike Indiana Jones on the top of a train.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I think it's very cool where he uses the Force to shut that door, but would that door not have shut anyway? It's an automatic
Star Trek
door.
style? Yeah.
Yeah. Is it more substantiation to the Pete the Retailer theory that the Force is all done with magnets? This is really not something you need to use the Force for. It's very cool. It's very cool though.
Yeah.
He's got a good finger action in this because he does that pose, that fight pose with the fingers, which I've never seen before or since. I don't know if it's a reference to anything in martial arts, but
I have no idea. I have no idea why he does it or why it's there.
Yeah.
But you're right. Looks good.
It does look good. So Anakin and Padme on the runway? I don't know what you call it.
Kind of, sort of. Yeah.
He mentions his mother again, which is good because that should have been what this was all about. So the screenplay is remembering that was...
This is another part for me where I'm constantly thinking about little tweaks.
Yes,
things I'd rather be seeing. You know?
And he represents the inbuilt flaw of the Sith business model as well.
Right.
Because he's already planning to overthrow
it's gonna be you
the
and
Emperor.
Me. And I also have a note here that says, when he says to Padme, you and I can rule the galaxy together, it's like he doesn't know his wife at all.
It's like, absolutely. He doesn't understand,
She has none of his fascist ideas and wantings and yearnings.
Exactly. She's Hillary Clinton, not Ava Peron.
Exactly right.
But it's kind of also quite funny that, does he just keep making that promise to literally anyone?
Yeah, right.
Because he makes the same promise to Luke. Does he
Luke,
just go around in the next 20 years, go to like anyone just
it could be
guys
you
on
and
the
me.
Street, like, You and me row the galaxy together. Come on.
Yeah.
I gotta get out. I'm in this kind of Sith pyramid scheme. I gotta get out of it.
It's a little weird for me
It
right
is
now.
a pyramid scheme, isn't it? Because the apprentice has to kill the master to sort of like stay alive. It's a total Sith pyramid scheme. He paraphrases George W. Bush as well. He says, "If you're not with me, then you're my enemy."
He
which
does, yeah.
is a Yoderism of what George W. Bush said. If you're not with us, you're against us. I can't imagine that's coincidental.
No, right? Yeah.
Did you notice what Christian said? This has been talked about in supplementary material, but Christensen, what he did to try and bridge the gap between him and James Earl Jones.
No.
He started
Lips?
to. He took it
Oh,
upon
no,
himself.
wait, just the voice, right? I said
Just the
lips. That's David Prowse.
The lips. Well, David Prowse is more than just the lips.
No, I said lifts.
Oh, lips. Okay, I thought you meant like. I thought for some reason you thought that the mask was like missing a piece, and you could see David Prowse's lips through. Well, all right. He started to slow down his and modify his speech so that his speech pattern would blend in with James Earl Jones.
Just at this point?
I think he's doing it throughout the movie, but at this point it starts to. That's why he's speaking so slowly and in measured terms, because.
All right.
So he's out there making choices.
That's diligent work from an actor.
Yeah, I think
I'm on
so.
board for that.
Coming up here is, I think, Yoda's most badass moment in the whole franchise, which, reminds us that you don't need all that frog hopping from the last movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because when he comes into the Emperor's chambers and just floors those two Imperial guards.
Those two Imperial guards.
It's such a cool moment. I love it. It makes me laugh every single time.
Sit
Just how
down,
effortlessly
fuckers.
He floors those two.
Yeah.
I remember getting laughter in the movie theater as well when
Do
it
you?
happened. Yeah, the first time I saw it.
But I also
So
have
now
a
we're-
weird moment where I think to myself, come on, even I know that lightning's gonna be coming at you, Yoda. Put up a defense.
Well, they don't. I mean, by their own admission, they're ignorant about what the Sith are capable of.
All right, fine.
And if they haven't realized it by now, I don't think they ever will. So at this point, we split our focus between the two
Right.
duels.
So
Right?
it's
as
like
you say,
45
Obi-Wan.
minutes of two fights.
Yes, not quite that long, but it certainly feels that way.
I think it is.
The beginning of the Obi-Wan Anakin duel, I think, is one hell of a fight. Its sequences.
So I do too.
I even like that they both have the same color lightsaber because that underlines where they both
I
come
made
from.
a note that's sort of the first
People
time we're
hate
seeing
that,
that,
though.
right? Really?
Some people like Pete the former guest of the show Pete the Retailer really hate that that you can't tell whose lightsaber's hitting whose, which is a valid point. On the other hand, I think it's supposed to be metaphorical for this.
Yeah,
particular
for
duel.
sure.
It'd be weird if he turned red.
There's a couple of things within this fight. One, all
I'm talking
credit.
about the beginning of the fight, which is
No,
just
I understand.
just the physical part.
So, and well, I'll keep it there
Pre-wrapped.
for now. The fight moves at a pace where you have to give all credit to the actors and the people who taught them what it is they're doing, because it's incredible.
It is, yeah.
It also moves at a pace that kind of makes it hard to watch.
I'm with it.
I don't know if
I'm
it's
swept away with it.
I don't know if it's just the pace or just how it's filmed, though. I think George Lucas is moving in, he's moving out, he's doing different things, but there are moments for me where I think, just give me that Return of the Jedi perfect medium shot and track them where they're going and quit fucking around and cutting. I'd like to see that a little bit more.
Yeah, but how much of that did Lucas want, and how much was it like that former TV director Richard Marquand's idea? I admit it's the better choice.
Yeah,
But
right.
would Lucas have made that choice?
I don't know. Yeah, good.
I don't know.
Good, fair point.
You're right.
And then there's this weird moment in the middle where they're spinning their lightsabers 1 foot away from each other, but not hitting each other. What's that all about?
I don't know. There's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of spinning and jumping.
Yeah.
Not much, none of it good.
All right.
And so this is intercut with Yoda and the Emperor, and they're both fighting with lightsabers. And I feel
Until
like
they're
this
not.
I feel like this was a missed opportunity because neither of these two are supposed to have lightsabers, and yet
Yeah, right.
this could have been the most unique fight between two Star Wars characters. They could have been.
I guess they try to get there, but all they're doing is taking
that's when it gets
seats out of the
interesting.
Senate and throwing them at each other.
So here's what I think. So the Yoda and Emperor fight gets better when it gets more conceptual, and he's throwing Senate seats at him.
Yeah.
Whereas the other duel completely loses me when they go on the rafts.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
that's where I lose interest in that. So while one duel goes one way, one duel goes the other. Essentially, is what I'm saying. They pass each other on the way up and down.
I also think that we kept it in the room, the beginning of the fight. Once they get outside and you're in a complete CG environment, I think you're losing some of the great work that the actors are doing physically.
Definitely. Yeah.
And it's just hard to track. Not to mention you have them swinging on vines. I mean, they're not vines, but vines like Errol Flynn
that's
at one
Crystal
point.
Skull you're thinking of. So.
I know.
We're not there yet.
But basically, that's what he wanted. They're basically vines. They're just cable
of course,
vines.
it's George Lucas again. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think you said in the previous episode that again they couldn't resist that background joke of the droid trying to pass around them as they fight,
Yes,
and then
right.
going back in the same direction it came from. So it's structured like a joke. Like actually, it's like he's like, "Excuse me." Oh, and then he sees what's going on and then backs out. It's like
It's the one place where you don't need a joke. Finally.
I hadn't even clocked until you said it in the last episode, and I reread my note that there was background comedy in this scene.
Right.
Like I remember there being a droid, but reading back, I'm like, oh my god, it's an actual bit of like physical comedy going on in the background. That's terrible.
It is terrible. And then so in addition, you mentioned when they're on the rafts. When they're on the rafts. There's always, it's funny because you think of Vader as so imposing, and of course he's not in the suit yet.
He's wearing lifts.
But there are just too many. There are too many moments in this fight where Hayden Christensen is saying, "Buckle up, Mister. I'm about to fuck your shit up." And then in one scene, or the first time he says that, he almost loses his balance and falls into lava. And the second time he does it, he gets his legs cut off.
Yeah.
This is not the imposing figure I think of, because those two choices make him look stupid. And I don't think of Vader as stupid.
It makes sense in terms of where he is in relation to where Obi-Wan is, except the beginning of the movie told us the opposite story.
Exactly.
So I don't know who to believe. Like if
there's different things. Like I think again, the movie does not make this clear to us. Yeah. I think Anakin is supposed to be more powerful, but Obi-Wan, he's gone through the trials, and so he is kind of more learned, and he can. Yeah. He's got more tricks up his sleeve. I think that's what it's supposed to be, but none of that is made clear at all in any portion of this movie.
Yeah, because in the opening scenes with the opening mini movie, where they're fighting Dooku, Obi-Wan looks like the one who's off the pace and who's hapless.
Exactly,
now,
yeah,
Anakin seems
and that's
to be
weird.
Hapless. Yeah,
but the only reason that happens is because Lucas needs it to happen story-wise. He has to be unconscious. He can't see him kill him. He can't see the murder.
That's true. Yeah,
of Dooku.
That's very true. That's probably why he did it. So he probably wasn't going for the idea that Obi-Wan is out of his depth, because that wouldn't jibe with what's going on here. Got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's how George Lucas writes scripts. He writes them scene to scene. Whatever happened in the last scene doesn't matter anymore. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Yeah.
This is where Obi-Wan first got the idea to become a terrible liar. He was like, you could just do that? Just say, from my point of view, and then say any old shit?
But again, it's one of those things where I just think you don't have to call so directly to the next movie. You can have him say a real line of dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's, again, this is the other sort of issue, is that he's such a teenager here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's like, I hate you!
Yeah,
It's like,
right.
you can, he's, it's like a Jaden Smith kind of territory.
It is, right.
And both the actor and the character should be beyond this at this point.
Right, yeah.
In terms of where they are in the story.
Unless you make it emotional. Or, I guess what I'm saying is...
But it's adolescent emotion.
It's adolescent, yeah. It's adolescent. Yeah. And I think I know what they're doing, which is Obi-Wan... I think Obi-Wan leaves because he thinks he's going to die. He's going down the rock towards lava. See you later. And I guess...
See you later.
I think in Lucas's mind, it has to be left there. But I don't know. I always think, what if, he has defeated him, and now what if he thinks he can make him see reason? What if he puts his hand out and says, "Let me help you"?
But look at the state of him.
I understand.
You can't put your hand out to that. It doesn't have the power to take your hand.
He's got a hand left.
Well, yeah,
he
but
has
it's
no
only
legs.
Well, that's the irony of it all. He was saved by his own metal hand. If he didn't have the metal hand,
right,
he wouldn't have been able to live out the rest of his life in a machine body.
So I guess my overall point was, if you have this sort of adolescent, terrible, "I hate you" line, but what if that comes after, "No, I don't want your help. I hate you." And then
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Basically, the end of Star Trek 3.
Yeah, right.
Gonna say, you're gonna have a hard time convincing Star Wars fans that a better ending to Revenge of the Sith is one from a Star Trek movie.
Also, once the Emperor shows up, I want a little more evil out of him. I want him to be disappointed that Vader failed.
Oh, he's adorable.
I know he is.
Was this part of his plan? Conceivably.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But
they can never rule that out with the Emperor.
I like the idea of him saying, "You failed me. Give me one reason why I should save your life." And then you have, you kind of have that idea of him repledging.
Basically, you want them to just kick him when he's down and crispy.
Absolutely.
From both sides.
Well, I want a few more emotional hooks. I want the idea, because it actually sets up the next trilogy better. If it's, "I'm going to save your life, you're indebted to me forever, you must never cross me." And then Vader starts with the, "Hey, Luke, what do you think?" And all, you know what I mean? Like, it sets Vader up in a way to never consider going back to the good side.
In this version or in your version?
In my version.
By the way, are we pitching sequels yet, or are we still
talking? I know, you're right.
I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of issues with this. As I said, I like the work they do with the body.
It looks great.
It looks great. It looks really good. And again, I don't think it's appropriate for a kids movie, but it's what it is.
I seem to recall hearing that at the time, though.
I
remember hearing
this with the child slaughter as a package deal is enough to cause concern. Each of them individually, I think you can just about get away with.
I just think I remember hearing, "Now listen, this one's different. So careful bringing your young
Johnny,
children." Yeah.
We know you liked the movie with the big lizard man, but
right.
Yes, the big lizard man who wears a waistcoat. Yes,
Yes, that one.
He's not going to be in this one. However, the horrifically burned, basically corpse of that little kid from the original film will. And speaking of like adding emotion to the scene, they've really missed an opportunity for a callback to the beginning of Attack of the Clones. Obi-Wan should have said, "I'll always think of you as that little boy on Tatooine." He had sunburn too.
Yeah. He also could have said, "You're going to be the death of me. No, I'm the death of you, bitch."
Absolutely, yeah. As far as I know, having done no follow-up research.
I'm not going to go down the hill and kick you into the lava, but I'm assuming you're going to die.
Also, I don't want to get down a rabbit's hole here, but
sure you do.
If Obi-Wan's in constant contact with Space Jimmy Smits, you think Jimmy Smits would like send him a hologram saying, "Oh, by the way, you didn't kill him. He's now number 2 in the Galactic Imperial Order."
Yeah.
But there you go.
I mean, when would he get that information, though? I think,
Well, Organa knows that Darth Vader's Anakin, doesn't he? I don't know. I don't know who knows what, and that's the problem.
Yeah. I don't know who, and I don't know when.
So we're starting to the Emperor passes Obi-Wan on the way to Mustafar.
Clearly,
as he's leaving. No, I mean, he does, literally. It's in the shot. You see his ship going in the background and the shuttle coming in the foreground.
Do you? I missed something.
No, I mean, it's not like it's not apparent in the movie, but I've seen like a Facebook post where they show that shot, and I'm like, oh, they're literally passing each other. But anyway, okay. So the Emperor rescues him. It's pathetic fallacy for sure, having all that rain come down, but that can't be doing his open wounds any good.
No,
that's unless that's like back to rain. It's a moment where poetry overrides the science of it.
Mm.
And at the same time, he's being dragged into the medical repair room.
Mm-hmm.
Padme's
giving birth.
Hey, wait! Can
I stop you for a second? Because
you can try.
I didn't ask you about I have the high ground.
Okay.
This is a much derided line.
It is, yeah.
So I wanted to get your thoughts on yay or nay, I have the high ground.
I don't particularly like it, but it's never bumped me. Like,
Okay.
We've talked about you have to meet movies halfway, and if the movie is telling you that this is how Jedis win the battle by taking the high ground.
It doesn't even make sense, though.
No, it doesn't make any sense. Well, it makes
sense.
Darth
Maul had the high ground against Obi-Wan.
He might just be talking about that specific battle. Like, you're gonna Jedi jump out of there, and I'm gonna cut your legs off.
Obi-Wan was in a worse position in the first movie, and it didn't seem to harm his chances. He cut Darth Maul in half.
Yeah, I don't know if it was meant to be a saying. You know what I mean? Like, you know what they say? I got the high ground. He doesn't say that. He just says, I have the high ground. Like, in this particular battle, it's an advantage.
All right. It always just comes across as comical to me.
Well, the other explanation, which again is equally possible, is that George Lucas heard somewhere that having the high ground in a battle is a good thing and wrote it into the movie without thinking or doing any research.
That's absolutely true.
That's absolutely
including what happened previous in his own movies.
Yeah, right, exactly.
All right, so yes.
So Padme's
dying of a broken heart.
And I don't understand why she can't have been dying of Anakin nearly murdering her.
Yeah, I think that could have been made more clear. And I think not that there hasn't been enough.
Oh, it's made very clear that she's dying for no reason. They say that explicitly.
On two
occasions.
I'm saying it wasn't made clear that he had done any damage to her. I always think about. I mean, granted, he's already killed a lot of children and a lot of other people. So why not add, infanticide to it as well?
Yeah.
And him using the Force to try and kind of crush her her body.
I don't like this road we're going down.
That's something
I'm
a really
not,
evil person would do.
Whatever it is you're proposing, I'm not going to sign off on it.
I think doesn't it sound like something an evil person would do? He sees Obi-Wan. He's filled with jealous rage. He says, if I can't have you, nobody can.
Killing her, not the babies.
Well, I think if he kills her, the babies die.
I think that would be like a hat trick of like cannibal Holocaust level horror things happening in the movie, and I think that's too many. That would make it an X certificate movie, I think. But I mean, again, why this is like there was no father. Like when you're in a fantasy milieu, you still have to play by your own rules.
Yeah.
You can't just introduce these random notes of extra fantasy.
Yes.
These non-established, like, people can die of a broken heart, or there can be virgin births.
Having a tiny robot say medically she's fine, but we're losing her. It's not good.
Also, why at what point did the medical droids defect from the Empire and start working for the rebels? Because it seems like Darth Vader's got the good droids from Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
I kept expecting it, like, as Darth Vader kind of unchains himself, I kept expecting the medical droid to go, "Take care, sir." There's something I do like about this. There's some things I like about the sequence and a lot I don't like.
Okay.
Things I do like is the cross-cutting of the birth and the surgery. There's some nice associative editing there. I think Lucas understands that editing language really well.
Sure.
He did the montage in the newspaper montage in The Godfather, and he's got it.
You must like that newspaper montage. That's the second time you've mentioned it on these episodes.
He's got a facility for that kind of associative editing, I think.
Yeah.
And he demonstrates it here. I don't like the mask being shot from the inside from Anakin's POV. I think that was a mistake.
Why?
Again, the only other POV we've seen in the trilogy is C-3PO's.
Is C-3PO's.
I don't know if it's making a greater point of we only see things through robot eyes in this movie. And then, the iconic Vader mask appears, and it's like literally sliding the prequel trilogy into alignment with the original trilogy.
Right, yeah.
It's filmed like a car commercial. And it made me wonder why George Lucas hasn't spent like his golden years directing car commercials, because no one would do it better.
Nobody would enjoy that more.
Right. It's literally like he's so mechanical, this shot of like, you can just imagine him in his mind replacing a tire on his classic car. That's what it feels like. It's completely devoid of emotion and effect at all. It's so clinical and cold, and I guess that's part of the point. But it feels cold as the viewer in a way I don't want it to. I want it still to feel like something of a tragedy.
It also feels slick, like a car commercial.
Like a car commercial. Yeah, that's exactly the problem.
And it's followed by his Frankenstein moment.
Well, that's it. Like, all the menace of the Vader reveal is blown for a cheap knockoff of Frankenstein.
Ooh.
And then the most melodrama we've seen.
Oh, ever.
In the series with the no Principal Skinner. Exclamation. Mother, Seymour, no!
Oh, man. Did it ever get a huge laugh out of me?
Yeah.
The first time I saw this movie.
It's fun. Like, I feel like because this prequel trilogy tends towards melodrama of this kind, it's a little more...
Not on this level, though.
Not on this level, but it's closer in spirit to what they've been doing in this trilogy. But when they reintroduce it, retroactively put it in Return of the Jedi, I think that, again, that is the greater crime of the two.
Yeah.
making it seem as if the original trilogy approves of this, which it never would.
No.
Padme dies in childbirth, which really, again,
that doesn't jive with the
Nope.
rest of the series.
Nope. I mean, at the time,
Don't care for that.
I remember in when we did Return of the Jedi, I said that there's blame on both sides. Because see, it's a great turn of phrase.
Oh man.
Because the problem with it in Jedi is that they're far too detail oriented. They should have kept it Vader. And
yeah, but they did what they did. It's your job to.
Yeah, that's where there's blame on this side.
Right.
But on the other side, don't be so specific. Don't write your future screenwriters into a corner.
Mm-hmm.
Future screenwriters, find a better way of getting out of that corner. Everyone out of the corner.
Aside from just not getting out of it.
One of the things that I ironically love about the next few scenes, all the decisions about how and where to place Luke and Leia go down exactly as you imagine in your head canon.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's no... this is what we kind of came to these films to find out, to have explained to us, and it's what they spend the least time explaining out of everything. They literally...
we always wanted a daughter.
They sit around the table and go, you take the girl, you take the boy. All right. We're done here.
Off we go. Yeah.
They're like, that's it?
Yeah.
Can we, what, I would love at least, some dialogue about your rationale for doing this.
I'd like that. I always thought that it would be, it's like you have to get to the sunset circle wipe moment of Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru.
Yeah.
And they look like the happiest people ever to adopt a son, but they know the danger in doing this. I'd like a conversation, perhaps, about, listen, we'll take this kid. I want you gone. I don't want to ever see you again, Obi-Wan. Something to set off,
careful,
how he feels about him in the fourth one.
That's obviously what Deborah Chow felt when she wrote those scenes
in
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Which are actually that first episode is really good. I think it falls apart after that. I think that first episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi is just, like you say, it's all those scenes you'd wish you'd had at the end of this movie put together into one episode. And after that, it goes fucking batshit crazy.
It does, quickly.
Yeah, well, this is the problem, because we spent a trilogy getting to one plot point.
Mm-hmm.
Luke and Leia being split up.
I think maybe Lucas also just thinks we take it all for granted.
But this
is what happens, and this is how quickly it happened, and bing bang bang, you're done.
That's it is very bing bang bang, you're done. I agree, but also the sort of the dislocation when you realize that the trilogy is all about getting to this plot point, and you realize that nothing that happened before that makes any difference whatsoever.
Yeah.
The last three movies don't mean anything because this happened the way you always thought it happened. So you've really got no new information.
Well, what would you rather see?
No, I mean, what we've been talking about it, that this wasn't an afterthought.
Mm-hmm.
That this wasn't just they've got to be here for the beginning of the next movie.
Yeah, right.
So let's put them there, but let's not discuss why we did it, because that's going to burn a lot of screen time. And I don't want to go back.
It's already a long movie.
I don't want to go back to Tunisia. I already got the shot that I needed.
Right.
Or that it should have organically the solution should have organically presented itself through what was happening in the rest of the movie. Not just, well, we're in a pickle, aren't we? Anyone want to take these kids?
Better split them up.
Yeah, anyone want to take these kids? What about you guys sitting closest to me? Yeah, sure.
Just a daughter, though.
Yeah.
I could give a fuck about a male.
Yeah.
That doesn't speak well of Space Jimmy Smits, that he's willing to take one but not the other.
Well, don't they say that? I mean, well, I don't know if is it in the original trilogy or here as well, where they say we have to split them up, because that makes sense.
I can't remember if they say it in this movie or not. Do they?
I tell you what they do. I don't think so.
That's remarkable.
I'm happy to
right?
be corrected on this, but
I hope we're wrong. I hope we're wrong.
I hope we're wrong, but I think it speaks to what you're saying about Lucas taking it all for granted. Like, oh no, we covered that in the original trilogy. We don't need
right.
We don't need to relitigate this. It's like, yeah, but you made a prequel trilogy, so there's going to be some relitigation by its very nature.
Gonna have to.
Yeah. And then, you know, they Yoda drops the bombshell that
yeah, right.
Obi-Wan's going to be joined
He's
by
going to be
Qui-Gon.
visited by Qui-Gon, but we're not. Cuz Liam Neeson wants nothing to do with this. By the way, what was Liam Neeson on? He was on maybe it was Smartless? Or Conan. He was on Conan O'Brien. He was on
talking about
Conan O'Brien's
podcast
podcast
again, or
no, but Conan brings up Star Wars. Boy, is it's so delightful to listen between the lines to mix, metaphors. But
Matt Gourley's been in his other podcast. Matt Gourley's been trailing that interview for quite a while, and I can imagine why.
Delightful. It's so much fun to listen to.
I mean, it's sort of like it's a reference to the character in lieu of the character returning. We got it eventually. We had to wait 20 more years, but we finally got the reunion that should have happened at the end of this movie. They just had to retcon it in between so that he's not appearing to him for half the time he's on Tatooine.
Yeah.
The mind wipe.
Well, talk to me.
C-3PO's, I don't know if it's his first. It's definitely not his last mind wipe in this series. And this was another, this again felt like it was something I knew before seeing Revenge of the Sith, that at least one of these droids was going to get their mind wiped, and that's why they don't know what's going on at the beginning of Star Wars.
Well...
And again, so there must be a novelization, or there must be something, some expanded universe text that's out there that talks about
I reiterate again, I never would have put these two in there at all.
Or I would have wiped both their minds. It's a bit...
At the very... Yeah, if you
it's a bit
choose
Deus
to put
Ex
them
Machina,
in,
but if you're going to do it, make it
gotta
wholesale.
wipe both minds. That's ridiculous, to leave R2 completely intact and C-3PO
Or some kind of,
gets his mind wiped.
Or some kind of, memory-specific version of the restraining bolt.
Mm-hmm.
Where, you can't have access to your memories while you're wearing these bolts or whatever.
Okay, yeah, I go along with that.
I love how we're talking each other into terrible choices.
I know, right?
It's all if we saw that on screen, can you imagine how we'd react? A restraining bolt just for memory? What a load of bullshit. This is why Star Wars fans can never be happy, because whatever they want to see, they actually don't want to see. I think I sent you the screenshot I took of the circular wipe, the kind of Looney Tunes wipe around C-3PO's face, which for a second looks like one of those 80s custom portraits with the person looking straight ahead and then looking to the side.
Yeah.
Like a ghost, they can see their own ghost or something.
Good times.
And that goes into the Naboo funeral with Padme's parents, last not seen in deleted scenes from Attack of the Clones, and a variety of forgotten CGI sidekicks, including Boss Nass and Jar Jar.
Yeah, right.
And are we supposed to... feels like the stupidest question I've ever asked on this podcast. Are we supposed to read something into Jar Jar's sadness that it's not just that he's sad that she's died, but also he feels somewhat responsible?
That he caused all of this?
I mean, he did. I mean, it's true. Factually, he did.
He did.
There's a Senate record speaking to it's in the books. He's on the nomination. Or is it just... that's it, because it's just this and then his one moment at the beginning.
Yeah, that's all he has.
So, is this another George Lucas? Look, here's Jar Jar being sad. Look, fans, you got what you wanted.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think he would even consider it. I think he said she died.
I think it is that simple.
Yeah.
Oliver Ford Davis as C.O. Bibble is at the back of the funeral procession. And as soon as I saw that, it's like, well, he's going to probably be sharing billing with Ian McDiarmid again. After appearing in the movie for 3 seconds.
I thought he might say a clear coffin could only mean one thing. Death.
What would be great is just if he said a clear coffin could only mean one thing. Invasion.
Yeah.
And they all just roll their eyes and they're like, always with the
Shut
invasion.
Up.
C.O. Bibble's really losing it. And then we sort of go into a kind of montage of
yeah.
We go Star Destroyers we see.
Right. We're going to get a Vader and an Emperor pose.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get Space Jimmy Smits and his wife holding a baby.
Yeah, the only time we've ever seen Alderaan up until this point, right? The first time we saw it in the original trilogy, it was
blown up.
Yeah. So
and now we know that Space Jimmy Smits blew up with it.
That's true. Well, no, he must have.
I also thought, did you think? I think it's a little weird because they seem so important in connection to the next trilogy. You know, and Space Jimmy Smits has so little to do in these movies, and then all of a sudden we just see his wife, and I think she doesn't even get to say a word. She's just holding a baby, and that's it.
That's what women do in this particular film.
Yeah, that's true.
They're just breeders and wives.
And window starer outers.
Window starer outers. We see that this is where we see both the Death Star and Grand Moff Tarkin.
Mm-hmm.
And they're already much further at this point than they were after a year's work in Jedi.
Yeah.
Which does no sense of how or why it took 20 years to get from this to a completed Death Star.
It's hard to say.
It is very hard to say. And then we get a Tarkin stand-in. A pre-digital Tarkin stand-in. It's just done with... Or is there any... Do you think it's digital or is just...
I think it looks a little CGI up.
It's just cheekbones. Why can't you do that with makeup?
You can find somebody that looks... you can find somebody that looks like Peter Cushing, can't you?
For that, if that's all you're doing, then yeah.
For Rogue One too, I think. Just find an old guy that looks close to him.
Yeah, or don't have him in the movie.
Or don't have him in the movie.
Both
yeah,
choices
right.
Are more acceptable than what we got. And then we're back on Tatooine. That shot that George Lucas...
Surprise.
That George Lucas took while he was filming Attack of the Clones there.
Right.
The Tatooine Suns set.
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan hands the baby to...
Looks pensive.
Sorry?
He looks pensively.
Or maybe the Opie just let one out and he's just wincing.
He's like, ooh.
That's it, and that's the end of the movie.
It is indeed.
The end of the prequel trilogy, apart from a credit check, obviously.
Go. Let us have it.
Billing for the leads is about what you expect it to be, having seen all the other Star Wars films. Ian McDiarmid gets more of a higher billing than he has now that it's been revealed that he's the Emperor. They didn't want to
because it was so secret.
They didn't want to
before.
tip anyone off with having too high a screen credit.
Yeah.
As suspected, Oliver Ford Davis gets joint billing with Tamura Morrison, someone who literally plays hundreds of characters in this film, and he's on screen for 3 seconds. It seems like it's easier to get a named credit if you died in the course of the film.
Oh, yeah?
There's like a mini in memoriam in the middle of these credits.
All right.
Of like people who presumably died during filming.
By the way, I don't want to interrupt you, but I think I know we gave some play to this for our Patreon listeners.
Oh God.
About our last episode, Attack of the Clones, and I said I was very excited about a credit check note for you.
Yeah.
So I went back and re-looked at the credits for Clones.
Okay.
I ended up looking 3 times. I have no idea what I was so excited
Oh!
about.
Such a fucking mystery box. You brought that up just to tell me you have no new information.
Exactly right. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay. No, that was worth the suspense. For sure.
I just thought that was funny.
It's one of life's great mysteries.
What the fuck was I so excited about? I have no idea.
Yeah, maybe they got to go back to. You need to watch the whole thing, I think.
Maybe.
So you have to watch Attack of the Clones again.
Yeah.
I think is what your brain is telling you. So one of the credits is Swordmaster / stunt coordinator. And Swordmaster is such a cool credit. It's a shame it has to be slashed with anything.
Yeah.
This shouldn't be something that's shipped. There's in the names of characters. There's a Captain Antilles, and also a character called Tennille. So I think someone with a fondness.
That's great.
I think someone with a fondness for 70s pop culture is fucking around with us here. The Wookiees get their own section of the credits.
Well, I know that they made...
And there's not that many of them.
Yeah, they made about, I think, a dozen actual Wookiees, and then everything else was CGI Wookiees.
Yeah, there's hardly any of them. Why should they have their own part of the credits?
No, I don't know.
Techno crane operator. Is this a techno crane, or is it a dance producer who sidelines in crane operations? Is that what Tambo? He's kind of a DJ, isn't he? He sort of DJs his own voice. Yeah. Plaster leading hand. Sounds less like a job description, more a result of what happens when a prop is made.
Agreed.
Plaster leading the hand. I don't know why all the Chinese engineers at Sony are given a special thanks. They even credit the people who brought the coffee.
Oh.
In that particular division, so it's out of control.
It does lead to your argument.
Was this the first time a website address appeared at the end of a Star Wars movie? I don't remember it happening before.
What's the website?
Like www.starwars.com?
I don't know.
Because now it's like no one ever does that anymore. No one ever says like find out more at www.
Yeah, right.
paulblotmallcop.com. But
you really picked one there, didn't you?
Why that movie? I did. I had a choice to make, and I made it. But I'm wondering at what point we started doing it and when we stopped. So, just a thought, something to keep an eye out for. Because this is what 2005, 5. Okay. 20, nearly 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my credit check.
All right. We did it. We're mostly done.
Yeah, we could. I didn't want to have to break it to you that there will be one more episode, but
yeah, we gotta try to write a sequel to this.
As if we haven't had enough. Absolutely.
As if it already hadn't been done.
Yes, absolutely. As if there are not a number of sequels to this in various different media.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The Star Wars prequels is in the books. You're going to have to tell us what you think about the last part of Revenge of the Sith. It's been an interesting time, I got to say, Tom. I've had a lot of fun.
When you put it like that, I could see that the second half of Revenge of the Sith could have been its own movie.
Yeah. Then it would have been a 2-scene movie.
Well, that's what's said about Rise of Skywalker. They should have broken it up so that they did one movie to finish the story of the sequel trilogy and then one to end the Skywalker saga. I think you can make a similar argument here that we needed a whole movie about Anakin turning into Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
But that only happens halfway into that's only half the movie.
I don't know that I trust Lucas to get
So that's the problem,
to get
isn't
that
it?
right.
And that's the thing. That's going to be the, that theme is going to continue into the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
Because we're going to end up talking about the same things where we're like, different things we want to see, but do we trust the people who are doing this with being able to execute it?
Mm-hmm.
That becomes the big issue.
No doubt. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think of Revenge of the Sith? You're going to have to tell us, let us know on Facebook, Instagram, or once again, whatever Elon Musk is up to. And then send us an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. We'll be sure to get back to you. And we got some interesting stuff to say in our next episode in our Pitch a Sequel for people that have written in about this series.
Yeah. And you know it's going to be interesting because it's neither of our opinions.
Yeah, exactly. That's what this podcast needs, less of us.
Good luck.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, for Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. When you hear us next, we will be pitching sequels, so be on the lookout. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
Ooba. I would have loved it if at that point, like, Padme would just return from the dead and said, actually, it's Luke.
Yeah. You kept that one in your back pocket.
After that, I also expect, in the same way that I can hear Thundercats after the Unlimited Power line. After this, I go, Uba Maba, Obo Mabo, Saxama.
Podcasts like I do, boy, do I have a treat for you. You need to
stay on target
and check out the Sounds in Cinema podcast. Listen as your host, sound designer and music creator Tony Parham, and co-host, musical performer and sound lover Derek Hansen, D-Rock if you're nasty, and I am, discuss all things sound related to film, television, stage, and theatrical productions. They discuss environmental sounds, bioacoustics, dialogue, the nature of communication through sound, but as an added bonus, they drink beer and try to
stay on target.
Find them wherever you get your podcasts and listen to the pure mania of a man who can charitably be described as Doug, the dog from Up, and another man with a soothing and sultry voice trying to get that man to
stay on target.
That's the Sounds in Cinema podcast. Tune in and listen to the sounds they are creating just for you.